Right, we're going to move on in another direction. We are going to be talking about exponents and powers for the next couple of sections. So this is 2.6, exponents. There's quite a bit of vocabulary involved in understanding how exponents and powers are written. So the first thing you need to know is that it is going to be a number that is raised to a tiny little number. So they're usually different sizes. The big number, or the normal size number, is going to be your base right here. And then the small number is your exponent. And when you write a base to an exponent, that is called exponential form. All right, so all together we would call all of this a power. So 2 to the 7th is a power. Exponential form is when it's written with a base and an exponent. The exponent is the small number. It tells you how many times you're going to multiply that base. And then the base is the large number. So a base and an exponent together is exponential form, and all together we would call that a power. So how do we write exponents? Well, when we write them, the first thing we're going to look at is what is our base, and then we're going to put it in with an exponent. So let's look at 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So what is our base? Our base is the number that is repeated over and over and over again. In this case, our base is 3. So it's going to be the large number because it's the base. And now we need to know what our exponent is. How many times is 3 repeated? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 3's, so 6 is our exponent, and we're going to write it small up in the corner. Let's try this one. What number is repeated multiple times? It's -2. We're going to keep that negative inside the parentheses because it changes the whole problem if the negative is on the outside of the parentheses. It's not a negative with a whole bunch of 2's. It is a -2 that is being repeated. And how many times is it repeated? It's 4 times. So this would be -2 to the 4th power. So let's look at ends. Because for letters, for variables, and for constants, it works the same thing. So what is repeated over and over? An n. And how many times is that n repeated? 5 times. So this would be n to the 5th power. Now let's look at 12. I want you to think about that one. What's the number being repeated? It's not really being repeated, but 12 would be the base. And how many times is it there? It's just once. So we would say that's 12 to the 1st power, but generally, if it's anything to the 1st power, we just say that it's 12. So the best way to write it is just to 12. It was already simplified. So we know how to write the powers. Now let's figure out how to evaluate them. Let's start with 2 to the 6th power. So remember what it means. What the base is the number that is being multiplied, and the exponent, the 6, tells us how many times that base is getting multiplied by itself. So 2 to the 6th would be the same thing as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Don't confuse this with saying 2 times 6, because this isn't 2 times 6. This is 2 6 times. So 2 times 6 would be 12. But what's 2 to the 6th power? Well, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. 32 times 2 is 64. So 2 to the 6th power is 64. So let's try -8 squared. Little side note, anytime it's a little 2 that's your exponent, we say it's squared. Anytime it's a little 3, we would say cubed. So -8 squared means -8 times -8. And a negative times a negative is going to be a positive, so our answer will be positive. And our 8 times 8 is 64. So it's another way of getting 64. So we could say 2 to the 6th power and -8 squared are equivalent. Let's try this one. It's -5 times -5 times -5. What do you think is going to happen when you have 3 negatives multiplied? 2 negatives becomes a positive, and then a positive times a negative is a negative. And then it would be, so it's going to be a negative 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. Let's try negative 2 to the third power, or negative 2 cubed. What do you notice that's different about this negative 2 and that negative 5 up above it? In this case, our negative is not included in that cube root. So what this one really means, since the negative is not included, is negative 1 times 2 times 2 times 2. The negative will not be cubed. That negative is going to be just stuck out in the front. So 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, with the negative 1 in front, which is going to give us negative 8. We're going to simplify some expressions that contain powers. So we're going to be doing the orders of operations. Remember, it's going to be parentheses and then exponents. So anything inside the parentheses needs to be done before you get to the exponents. So here we have 50 minus 2 times 3 times 2 cubed. Now, inside that parentheses, we're going to have to solve that first. And inside that parentheses, that 2 is cubed. So we're going to have to do that one first of all. So that would be, we're going to write the whole thing over again. So we've got our 50, we've got our minus 2, we've got our times 3. Now we have simplified to an 8. So now we're going to simplify inside this parentheses here. So we're going to have 50 minus 2 times 24. Now we need to multiply that 2 times the 24, which is 48. So it'd be 50 minus 48. 50 minus 48 is 2.